What do you remember about Ashland, Oregon?
I remember it was freezing cold.
Right.
I moved up from Menlo Park, California, where I lived with my grandmother. And when I moved up to Ashland, my mom, she had legal custody of us. And
Okay.
so she got remarried to a guy that really didn't like me very much. I didn't really like him. And when we got up to Ashland, they put me and my brother in this building called they called it the bunkhouse. It's more
Okay.
like a big dog house.
Right.
And it was so freezing cold. We lived in that thing for 3.5 years. And my dad came up and stayed one night in that bunkhouse, and he couldn't last the entire night. It was so freezing. And we were just kids. We didn't know any better. It was really a dirty existence too. Like we never had our clothes washed. We slept on cots and sleeping bags. We had this little heater that we would take our sleeping bags and cover ourselves up over it to warm up in the morning before we went to school. And it was a pretty miserable existence.
Right.
And then my mom got divorced, got this boyfriend that didn't like us, and he threatened to kill me and Dave. So my mom sent us to go live with our dad back in Palo Alto, which was fine with us because we got out of that bunkhouse. So,
Okay.
yeah, and then I went back for for one semester in high school, where at Ashland High School, where I started my wrestling career. And I wasn't very successful. I only won 4 out of 10 matches.
I'm wondering, when I'm thinking about myself, do you think like that sort of childhood when you have this sort of resent with your fathers, do you think that sort of contributed to your aggression and some of your power in wrestling?
Well, yeah, I do. I think it had a very profound effect.
Right.
I think it was like I think that without that adversity, I wouldn't have nearly been as motivated to do what I did. It created a very, very strong motivation for me it also made me extremely independent. I knew I couldn't rely on anybody
Right.
except myself.
Right.
So I
Totally.
just, I mean, my brother was also a big part of that. Being the brother of Dave Schultz was a lot of pressure. It was kind of like being the son of Alexander Karelin or Medved or somebody.
Right.
You know, there was just almost no way I could overshadow him. And the pressure, I mean, to give you an idea of how different me and Dave are, Dave had the greatest high school wrestling season in history.
Wow.
He won the Great Plains. He took second at Tbilisi, which was considered the toughest tournament in the world. He came back, won the state championship at the weight above his normal weight.
Right.
Then he went to the U.S. Open in Greco and won that and got the most falls in the least amount of time. Whereas I didn't even start wrestling until my junior year in high school, and I had a losing record my junior year. And after 10 matches, the coach kicked me off the team.
Wow.
And then I moved up 30 pounds next year, my senior year. And I only had 2 matches my senior year. I mean, 2 tournaments my senior year, the Alisal and the Monte Vista. And I lost my first match at the Alisal and was eliminated, and then took third at Monte Vista. Those were my only experience in wrestling high school tournaments up until the state qualifiers at the end of my senior year. And then at the end of the year, I won the league, the region, the section, and the state. I'm the only California state champion in history never to win a tournament prior to the state qualifier, which is very different than
Totally.
Dave. It's weird because we're in the same family. It's almost like the complete opposite.
So what happened there? What changed at Palo Alto, and what changed? How did you go from a losing streak to just domination? What do you think happened there?
Well, I first of all, I trained my ass off. I mean,
Right.
I just pushed myself to death, and I was not a great cardiovascular athlete, but I just tried so hard to eliminate that weakness in me. And so I ran like crazy. I probably ran like at least around the world one time. It was just insane how much I ran
Right.
and worked out. I always wrestled twice a day. I went to my practices at Palo Alto High School. And then I'd go over to Gun High School and I'd wrestle with the Stanford guys.
Okay.
And wrestling with college guys was a huge
Totally
advantage.
different.
Well, I wouldn't say advantage, but it gave me a lot of confidence because I knew if I could do good against college guys, I could
Right.
do a lot better against high school guys. I mean, college guys, the biggest jump you're ever going to make in quality is from high school to college.
Yeah.
So I was beating Stanford guys, and plus there was a guy on my team named Jeff Newman who went undefeated all year at the weight above me. He beat the Central Coast section champion in California at my weight, which was that guy. His name was Joe Guillory. It was Joe's only loss of the year. And so even though I wasn't winning in competition, and I didn't have much experience in wrestling, I knew I was good enough to win. So at the end of the year, I win the league, the region, the Central Coast section. I beat Joe Guillory in the finals of the Central Coast section. And then I beat the first guy at state by 1 point. I beat the next guy at state who was ranked number 1 in the state. I beat him in overtime. And then in the semifinals, I beat another undefeated guy 5-2. I caught him with this move that this Stanford wrestler taught me. His name was Bob McNeil. I called it the Bob McNeil side roll. I caught him with a 5-point move in the second period and rode him out and got into the 1-5-2. I'm in the finals. And then this guy in the finals, his name was Chris Bodine. I ended up wrestling him in college one time. He went to Arizona State.
Okay.
And he took me down. I escaped. He took me down again. I escaped. And then I hit him with a Bob McNeil side roll in the second period. And now it scores 4-4. And all he's got to do is escape. And he's the state champion. And he stands up and breaks my lock. And I reached down and grabbed his leg right before he escaped. And I just hung on for dear life. And I didn't know what to do. But I had studied this Eastern Indian philosophy of this guy named Jiddu Krishnamurti. He wrote a bunch of books. Okay. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but anyway, he taught me to basically live in the present and die to the past.
Okay.
And so I'm hanging on to this guy's leg, and I recovered cardiovascularly before he did, I think, because I was training so hard. And right. I just thought, this could be my last match ever. I mean, if I don't win the state, I'm not going to get a scholarship to college. Nobody knows who I am.
Right.
I could join. I'm probably going to join the Marines or the Army, right. Or be a Ranger.
This is my last chance.
So right. I just decided. As soon as I recovered, I did something. I never even done this before. I did a back suplex with a single leg, and miracle upon miracles, he landed on his back, and I slapped in a half and cradled him for 3 and won the state 7-4. And then I got a scholarship to UCLA.
Okay.
And I got 2 scholarship offers. One was Oklahoma State, and the other was UCLA.
Right.
But Dave was going to Oklahoma State. A lot of people think Dave helped me when I was in high school to win the state.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
That's not true. I never wrestled with Dave one time. No, not until after I won the state. He came back from Oklahoma State. Now, he's the #1 recruit in the nation.
Right.
He's he's the freshman of the year.
Right.
At Oklahoma State. He's the highest placed freshman in 1978 at the NCAA. He took 3rd. And he almost beat Mark Chiarella, the guy who won the OW that year. And I wasn't there. I don't know what happened, but a lot of people have told me he got screwed. But anyway, he comes back from Oklahoma State. Now we're the same weight class. And he would ask me, this is the summer after my senior year, and he would ask me to go work out. I was so burnt out from that year. I was usually like, nah, I don't feel like it. And he'd go, you pussy, this real high-pitched, feminine voice.
Right.
And I'd be like, okay, you're going to die.
You can't call me that.
I'd go, let's go. And we'd go, and he would just kill me. He'd just kill me like 50 to nothing every single day this went on. You want to go work out? No, you pussy. Okay, let's go. And he'd kill me. And
classic.
Every day. And finally, after 3 months of getting killed every day, I thought, if I can't, I'm not scoring any points at all summer long. Mm-hmm. And finally, I decided, you know what, if I can't score any points, maybe I can just change tactics and keep him from scoring points. So I decided I'm not going to even try to score. I'm going to break his lock, back up, do whatever I got to do to stall and keep him from scoring.
Okay.
So that's what I did. And I got so good at stalling, I didn't have to back up anymore. I could hold my ground or move forward and still stall. Mm-hmm. And I got to the point where I could keep him from scoring on me. And I knew if I could keep him from scoring on me, I could keep anybody in the world from scoring on me because he's the best in the world.
Okay.
So that's how my style developed. Was my defense was I strengthened my defense first because of that summer. And I knew if I could just score 1 point against anybody and keep them from scoring, I could beat anybody.
Go ahead. Tell me about that sibling rivalry. How fierce was it, and how much did it change you at that point? Where did it go? I mean, you guys weren't physically fighting. You didn't hate each other or anything. And I'm guessing it was a bit of a love-hate relationship, but a bit of a battle as well.
In a way, it was kind of like one of those blessed curses. You think you're cursed, but it was actually a blessing. And it was very difficult. But after that summer, we worked out almost every day together. He moved to UCLA. He was at Oklahoma State. He was a 150 pounder at Oklahoma State. And they wanted him. Tommy Chesbro was the coach, and he wanted Dave to stay at 150 and put Ricky Stewart at 158. And Dave didn't want to do that because cutting to 50 was too hard for him. Okay. He was too big. So I go to Oklahoma State on a recruiting trip, and he says, and he's not even going to classes there. They're just giving him these Mickey Mouse classes. Right. And he's getting free grades, and he's not even going to school for school. He's not getting an education. He's going there to wrestle. And so he told me he was not happy at Oklahoma State, so I shouldn't go there because he might leave. So I only had one other scholarship offer. That was UCLA. That was a great offer. It was a full ride. Mm-hmm. UCLA is awesome.
Yeah.
It's sunny Southern California. Right. You got movie stars walking around. There's girls in bikinis everywhere. It's sunny all the time. Just like right next to Hollywood. Yeah. My parents were in the entertainment industry. My dad was a professional drama teacher, actor, director, professional stand-up comedian, improvisational comedian. And he's a songwriter, a playwright, he's a piano player, just really very skilled, talented guy in entertainment. Mm-hmm. And my mom was the costume designer at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. So I grew up in that entertainment industry. So I was a child actor when I was a kid.
Really?
I'm in UCLA, which is right in Westwood. Hollywood's right next door. Okay. So this is like my stomp. This is like going home to me. But there was a problem. The coaches were always fighting with each other, and it created a division among the team members. And a house divided against itself can't stand. And we thought if we stay at UCLA and win an NCAA, it's going to be a miracle. Why don't we go someplace where instead of it's a miracle? See, Dave was at Oklahoma State, and when I signed with UCLA, he transferred to be with me at UCLA. And so I went through my freshman year there. My record was 18-8. Dave redshirted. And then we both made the junior world team, and we met Jim Humphrey, who was the University of Oklahoma assistant coach. He was a 2-time U.S. Open champion. He's a world silver medalist. And we thought, this guy's a really funny guy, really fun. We like him a lot. Let's go there. He can coach us. And so we went to Oklahoma. Oklahoma was pure hell. I mean, literally hell on earth.
Why is that?
For one thing, the first day of practice, coach takes us out to this duck pond and runs us on this track. And it's about 107 degrees out, 97% humidity. And it's like running on the surface of the sun. And I'm like, how am I going to get through 4 years of this?
Right.
And I just thought, this is ridiculous. And then, not only that, but on top of that, I was going to have to beat the guy that was starting at Oklahoma U at my weight. His name was Israel Shepard. I don't know if you know who he is, but his dude is a badass. He is third in the NCAAs, black dude, really built like Hercules. And this guy is really fastest sprinter on the whole team.
Okay.
And he ended up being a 3-time All-American. And I'm thinking to myself, I haven't even placed in the NCAAs. I didn't even win a match at the NCAAs my freshman year. I was one and done and out. And this guy's third in the NCAA. And I'm thinking, how am I going to beat this guy? How am I going to make the team even at Oklahoma? But Stan Abel did a really good job of moving us around here. I used my redshirt year to build my confidence and try to crush Israel's confidence down. But I didn't know that Stan Abel was going to move us around. I thought I was going to have to go directly against Israel next year. And so I knew he was going to have to cut weight, and I knew he was going to have to compete under pressure. And I could use that against him during my redshirt year to try to crush his confidence down. So I did. And the next year I had grown into a 167 pounder, and Dave had grown, well, he's always been a 158 pounder. And so Coach Abel decides to redshirt Israel, put Dave at 58, wrestle me at 167. And then the next year he moved me up to 177 to challenge Ed Bannock, and moved Dave up to 167 to go against Mike Sheets. And then he put Israel back in the lineup at 158, and Israel ended up taking third in the NCAAs again. I think he lost to Ricky Stewart. But then that was weird because Dave didn't want to he didn't want to cut to 150 at Oklahoma State because they had Ricky Stewart, and they wanted to put Dave at 50 and Ricky at 158. Well, Dave goes to Oklahoma and becomes a 158 pounder and meets Ricky Stewart in the NCAA finals and gets upset. He had beaten Stewart 3 times during the season, and then he got pinned in the NCAA finals and took second that year. And I got lucky, and I beat Mike Deanna, which was weird because my freshman year, the year that I didn't even win a match at the NCAAs, I saw Mike Deanna wrestle Mark Chiarella, the guy that won the NCAA's Outstanding Wrestler Award. He was in the finals with Chiarella. And then my sophomore year, I'm going up against Mike Deanna now in the NCAA finals.
This is the year you upset
and I beat
his streak.
That was my first NCAA title.
Right. So I'm curious, what at this point in your career, what was the difference between your styles, and what was Dave's wrestling style, and what was the difference between you two as wrestlers?
Well, we were very similar, actually. We were almost like carbon copies of each other. He did more arm throws, and he was better at freestyle because I had a lot stronger upper body. And wrestling, the way I describe collegiate wrestling is it's more of a control-oriented style, whereas freestyle is more like a domination-oriented style. You have to have more upper body strength to be good in collegiate because you have to ride and you have to escape. Whereas in freestyle, you don't. It's all takedowns and turns. So you don't need the kind of upper body strength you need in collegiate. And so Dave wasn't as good at collegiate as he was at freestyle. He won 1 NCAA title in collegiate, and he won, I think, 8 national freestyle titles. I won 3 NCAA titles and won 4 U.S. Open titles. So, but our styles, I mean, we look like mirror images of each other. I mean, we both led with the same foot, even though he was left-handed. He was ambidextrous because he had dyslexia.
I read that, yeah.
And so he could do moves equally well to both sides. So but I was not ambidextrous like him. But we both led with our left leg, and I actually had a square stance until 1982, and then I went to Tbilisi, and I saw that the guy that won that tournament at my weight had a staggered stance. And when I came back to America, I switched to a staggered stance, and I wrestled Ed Bannock 3 days after I got back, and in a dual meet, which was I wish I could find this match, because this was one of the greatest college matches ever. It was the Iowa-Oklahoma duel. The team ended up tying 19-19, but my match with Bannock was a constant back and forth battle. One guy would lead, then the other guy, and the other guy, and the other guy. Right. And finally, I took him down with a limp arm fireman to run the pipe, and with 2 seconds left, and I took him down. They called take down. I look up, and the whole crowd jumps out of the seat. And I wish I could find that match somewhere, but I can't. Anyway, Dave and I were very similar. You know, a lot of people say that Dave is the greatest technician ever. And, you know, I'm happy that people think that about him, but he was no better technician than I was. I had a different set of tools, but they were just as effective as Dave's tools.
Talking about technique in comparison, what's your thoughts on, you know, in the end, technique in comparison to conditioning? You know, what pulls you through? What's more valuable as a wrestler?
Yeah. Conditioning, by far. Conditioning. Yeah. Wrestling is 90% conditioning. If you don't have conditioning, it doesn't matter what you know. But if you have conditioning, you can make almost anything work by driving your opponent into helplessness from fatigue. Now, I was not that good at driving my opponents into fatigue, but I was good enough to keep them from driving me into fatigue, usually.
Hey, dude, so tell us about, what's his name, Chris Rinke. Give us a little detail about that match and what sets it apart from others. Was this your toughest match?
Well, I had 2 extremely tough matches in the Olympics. The way they bracket the Olympic tournament is you step on the scale, you reach into a bucket, you pull an egg out, and inside that egg is a number.
Right.
Well, I reached in and pull out the number 6. Well, Reza Karabajak, the European champion that beat all the Soviets that boycotted the Olympics, is standing right behind me. And he gets on the scale and he pulls out the number 8. And they put all the even guys on one side of the bracket and all the odd guys on the other side. And then the winner of each bracket goes for the gold medal. Well, in the first match, 2 wrestles 4 and 6 wrestles 8. That means I have the gold medal match, my first match.
Oh, shit.
So I'm just go back to my hotel room. I'm staring at the wall, sweating like a pig, just waiting for this match to come. And he grabbed me, he limp armed me and grabbed a high crotch. And I had seen this move down in the Pan Am Games where I wrestled Chris Rinke, by the way. I saw this Cuban guy do it to some guy from Paraguay or Uruguay, one of those Guay countries.
Right.
And he threw the guy head over heels and got 2 points. Well, I had never even done this move in practice or in competition. I would do it with the guy's head inside, but I never did it to anybody with his head outside. And so I just thought, you know what? It's him or me. I'm going to go for it. And I just locked up the double wrist lock. Brazilians call it a kimura. And I just threw it and just tried to throw him into a front flip. But his head hit halfway through the match. And after his head hit, I still was holding on to the arm. And the arm just kept going while his body stopped and his elbow snapped. And I felt it snap. And then he just laid on his back and I look up at I'm on top of him looking up at the ref, like, hurry up and call the pin, you know. So they called him pinned, and they took him to the hospital. And then 8 hours later, they filed a protest. And because his injury was so severe, they decided, even though his protest was filed 8 hours too late, they decided to symbolically give him the victory by disqualifying me for excessive brutality. And then I beat some guy from New Zealand the next match. And then I had to wrestle Rinky. And Rinky had already beaten me at the Pan Am Games. And now he's got my coach, my college coach, Jim Humphrey, the guy that we went to Oklahoma for, is now the Canadian national coach, and he's in Rinky's corner. And he knows how to wrestle me better than anybody. I mean, he was trained by Humphrey to beat me. And so he's beating me 2-2 criteria tiebreaker. And I've got to score. I'm going to lose. So I shoot on him. I take him down, and then I gut wrench him. And the referees give me a point for the takedown and 2 points for the gut wrench. So they put the score on the scoreboard 5-2. And about 2 seconds later, I look at the scoreboard while I'm wrestling, and it's 4-2. And I'm like, what happened to my 5 points? Why do I only have 4 points now? And what happened was the referee gave me 2, but the mat judges only gave me 1 because Rinky didn't hit his elbows when he got gut wrenched. He went palm to palm.
Okay.
And so they only gave me 1. Well, that screwed me up in the head because when I saw the score was 5-2, I thought, oh man, I can give away 3 takedowns. I can basically kill the clock and still win the match on a criteria tiebreaker, because if you have a 2-pointer and the score is tied, you win the criteria. Mm-hmm. But if you have all 1-pointers, if both guys have all 1-pointers, whoever scores last wins. So by taking that point away from me, it meant I could only give away 1 point and still win. I wasn't going to win the criteria tiebreaker if I gave away 2 points, if the score is 4-2. So, but that screwed me up in the head. I didn't realize that while I was wrestling. I'm trying to do this math in my head, and I'm wrestling at the same time I'm doing all this stuff. And the referees just hate my guts because I broke the Turk's arm, and they're yelling at me. They've already given me 2 cautions. Yeah, they're yelling, passive rouge, passive rouge. That's passive red. That's French. It's an international language. And I know they want to throw me out. So I just thought, you know what? I'm going to throw caution to the wind, throw myself in there, give a point away, and let him take me down. Well, but if I had done that, I would have lost the criteria tiebreaker, because the score was now 4-3. After I'm doing that math in my head, he takes me down again. Now the score is 4-3. So now I can't give away any points, but I'm still thinking I can give away a point. So I throw myself in there expecting to give away a point, and he just happened to grab me in a front body lock. And I just happened to have an unstoppable counter called the duck scoop. So instead of giving the point away, I decided to attack and go for it. And I took him down with that duck scoop, and that's how I won 5-3. And I didn't even realize that I would have lost that criteria tiebreaker until a year after the Olympics. And they give you the bracket sheet if you win. And so I take the bracket sheet home, I put it on my wall. And a year later, I'm just sitting in my office all by myself looking at the bracket sheet, and it occurs to me,
holy shit,
I would have lost the criteria tiebreaker. And I'm sitting there all alone coming to this realization. It was the weirdest feeling ever.
Oh, I bet. You're like a year later, oh, fuck, I almost lost that match. Crazy. Hey,
yeah, so it would have ruined my life.
Totally. Check this out. I'm going to pull up a clip. Speaking of the double wrist lock, let's pull that up. I think this is a pretty classic moment in your career as well that really changed that moment in time. Let's pull that up.
It'll obviously affect his aggressiveness. The United States team has been dominant, and Dave and Mark Schultz have been 2 of the most dominant. And I think he'll be a little bit more cautious in what kind of holes he uses to affect his scoring in the competition today.
Yesterday we saw the match, Karavacek and Dave Schultz. You're going to watch him now, Mark Schultz. And is this an illegal hole? He's in the red. And watch, this fractures the elbow of the Turk.
Well, Karabachek had attacked on a single leg here, and Mark Schultz reaches over, locks his hand. What's called a double wrist lock. The concern there was the direction. He took the elbow up over the top of the head, drove him toward the mat with that double wrist lock, and I think it was an illegal hold.
For you guys, let me end that here. I had another. It doesn't have volume there. I don't know what happened there, but there was another scene I was going to show where you're explaining that, which you already did. But that moment changed because I think your brother Dave, somebody's knee got hurt around that same time. So you guys got the head official like watching over you guys like hawks. Now, I'm curious, was that move really illegal, or did they just call it illegal because you guys were dominating and it was so aggressive?
They decided it was illegal after the fact. They said they didn't really have any rule against that move.
Right.
And that's why I did it.
Yeah.
And they said I think they made a rule up after that move.
That's
because they said you can take the arm to 90 degrees legally, but if you take it beyond that, it becomes illegal. Well, that wasn't really a rule before then.
Yeah.
I mean, we did double wrist locks all the time. We were counting single legs with the head on the inside. But anyway, it did change things. But I would like to say, I did not intend to hurt him.
Yeah.
I didn't intentionally
it didn't
hurt
look
him.
like it. Looked like
just a violent sport. It's just things happen.
I know. I hear you. I broke a kid's arm when I was in, we were young. I was wrestling freestyle, when I was in, before high school. And I broke a kid's arm just with I threw him in a head and arm. And he just got his arm in the wrong spot when, when he's going over the top and landed on his arm the wrong way and broke his arm, So that's just part of the sport. It's a rough sport. Shit happens.
Yeah, I've had a lot of broken bones.
Yeah. So now so you guys get the double golds. How did that change your life at that point?
I was relieved that I won. It was so remarkable in the manner in which I won. It was so many things had to fall in place just right for me to win. I was not really favored to win. I was ranked second. Matter of fact, when I went into the Olympic Village, they had been giving out brochures on what to look for in the Olympics, and I was put on this brochure as ranked second, behind Karabachek, but ahead of Ncaa. And Ncaa had gone through the metal detectors at the Olympic Village, and this girl with this brochure was having all the athletes sign her brochure. And when Chris signed her brochure, she told me that this guy said he's going to win the gold. And just blood just rushed to my head when I heard that. And anyway, I was like, this is not going to be easy. This is going to be a knockdown, drag-out fight to the death.
Right.
And it pretty much was. Anyway, it didn't really change. Winning the Olympics didn't really change me other than the fact that I knew I could call myself Olympic champion for the rest of my life. And that was a great feeling to know that. I mean, no matter what happened after that. But what was even better was winning the Worlds the next year, because a lot of people were kind of poo-pooing the Olympic gold medal because the Soviets weren't there. Even though I beat the European champion, they still,
Yeah.
But the next year, I was the only 84 Olympic champion to win the World Championships, and I beat all the Soviets that boycotted the Olympics.
Good on you. I saw an interview the other day with Dan Gable, and Dan, had 180 wins, 181 wins, and then one loss. And in that interview, you could, it's years later, and you can tell it doesn't sit well with Dan, No,
you're right.
So, what's your thoughts on second place?
You know how many silver medals I own?
I think it's I read that 3. Yeah.
You know how many bronze medals I own?
No.
Zero.
Yeah.
There's something about me. When I get into the finals of a tournament, I perform under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm cool under pressure that way. But if I get beat early on in a tournament, I just lose all motivation. I don't feel like wrestling back in the consolations. I usually just drop out or lose another match and I'm out. I figure if I can't win, I don't want to play. That's kind of my attitude.
That's all right, man. Second sucks. That's I think that's a great. One of my coaches said that when I was younger. He's like, "Hey, man, winning's great, but you know, second sucks." That was the thing he'd always say to us. So, yeah, I totally get it. Here, this is another thing. I've seen a lot of things about you and about training and how you sort of had a love-hate relationship with wrestling. What was it? Did you love wrestling? Did you hate wrestling? Was it a little of both?
It was both. And a lot of people think I got into wrestling to win tournaments. That's not true. I got into wrestling to learn how to fight.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't care. I had a very severe lack of self-confidence when I was a kid. I couldn't talk to girls. That was a big thing.
Right.
And so I got into, I didn't know, back when I was like in 1976, when I was a high school kid, nobody really knew what the most effective martial art was. And the only thing that we knew was what we saw on TV and in the movies and in Black Belt magazine. And, you know, we saw Bruce Lee kicking the crap out of 20 guys in Fist of Fury. And I'm like, holy crap, one guy can beat 20 guys? I thought, man, if I can learn what he learns, I can beat at least one guy, my brother Dave. Mm-hmm. So, but they didn't have any Bruce Lee studios around, but they did have a Chuck Norris studio here near me. And so I enrolled in that, and I was really good because I was a state champion in gymnastics. And that was my sophomore year in high school. I won the Northern California State Gymnastics Championship. Not the state, the Northern California State.
Right.
So that's for my age group. But I could hold my foot almost directly over my head. I could kick over the top of somebody's head. I was really flexible. I was a great athlete because of my gymnastics. You know, I could do a 2.5 twisting, 1.5 back off the 3-meter board. I could do 2.5 fronts off the 3-meter board. I was doing double backs on the trampoline and stuff, double twisting backs on the trampoline, which was pretty a high level move for guys my age back then. Now it's not that high level anymore because their spotting equipment has improved so much.
Okay.
They can afford to take a lot more risks than we could back then.
Okay.
But anyway, gymnastics really helped me a lot. And so I got into tank judo for about 4 months, and it was, and it gave me a false sense of confidence. You know, after my 4 months of tank judo training, my brother comes up from California, and I'm living in Oregon now. We're separated. I'm a junior in high school, and he got under my skin. He said something really disrespectful, and I thought, I'm going to show him who's boss of the family now with my new tank judo skills. So we go out in the front yard, and I take a swing at him, and he takes me down with a double leg. And that's when I learned most fights end up on the ground.
Right.
And
it's on the mat, man.
Piss out of me. And I was so embarrassed. I was like, okay, screw tank judo. I'm going out for the wrestling team because I thought wrestling was a more effective martial art. That's why I got into wrestling. It wasn't to win tournaments.
To kick some ass.
It was to learn to fight.
Yeah.
And if you look at the all-time top 10 all-time winners in the all-time greatest fighters in the UFC now, 8 out of 10 of them are wrestlers.
They're wrestlers. That's right. It's always been that. They own the game. You know, Khabib's a good example of that. So I want to pull up a clip. I hope the audio works here.
United States, who very shortly will be going on the mat, going for the gold medal at 180.5 pounds. We've already had 2 championship matches this evening. The United States losing in both of those competitions. Dave Schultz is a very strong, or Mark Schultz rather, is very strong, very tough, very competitive, and he's dominated most of his people here. I asked him earlier how it felt to win so decisively.
It's a great feeling. Just beat somebody to death, you know. I just love it, you know. But if I just get my hand raised, that's okay too.
You're getting an interview. Do you remember this interview?
Yeah, I remember what I said.
Oh man, I laughed so hard when I saw that. He goes, yeah, I really like it. I really like when I can just beat them to death. I'm okay when they raise my hand, but I like beating them. I mean, true fighter there, man. I love that. It was classic. So I think I said being one of the best wrestlers in U.S. history and one of the baddest athletes there is, what is winning for you?
It's everything. Wrestling, winning, I mean, I don't compete to lose.
Right.
I have to win everything, every time. Except one time, there was one time that I threw a match, and that was my final match in wrestling at the Olympics in '88. I threw that match because it occurred to me during that tournament that I could not win a gold medal for John DuPont's team. But other than that, winning was everything to me. But winning wrestling matches was different than winning a fight. You know, winning a fight was the only reason I did it. Learning how to fight is the only reason I wrestled. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I did, because wrestling is the best foundation for fighting. And now we know that because the UFC's proved that. I was basically just guessing when I was younger that wrestling was the best foundation for fighting. But I didn't know that until, you know, the jiu-jitsu came to America, the UFC came to America, and, you know, the sport evolved into what it is today.
Speaking of that, I saw a quote somewhere where you were talking about that the ultimate fight was jiu-jitsu, and I also pulled up another clip here. He just published the other day. I don't know if you've seen it.
I had a coach, Mark Schultz.
Have you seen this clip?
Mark Schultz fought Rickson Gracie. Mark Schultz is an Olympic champion.
I love Chael. He
Three-time
wrestled
NCAA
for me.
champion.
I was his Brazilian
Mark
jiu-jitsu.
Schultz was training under Pedro Sauer in Provo, Utah. And Mark could beat everybody. He could beat everybody in the class so bad that Pedro would not train with him in front of the students anymore, but Pedro would not elevate Mark to a black belt. And when you go to actual jiu-jitsu competitions, you have to sign up under belt. So belt really matters. It really does matter. However, if you try to take a false valor, you will pay for it. You get your ass kicked in front of everybody. You get your arm broken in a competition. So it really matters, but that's also the checks and balances. Mark Schultz is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He went to Meyer and Frank and bought it. He shows back up at the jiu-jitsu gym wearing his own black belt. And to some of you, that's an interesting story. To any of you that are actual practitioners, you realize you can't do that. And Mark said, I'm tough enough to wear it, and if anybody doesn't think so, just come take it from me. It was at that point that Pedro Sauer said, that is your black belt, Mark. You are a black belt. So, I mean, you tell me who's right in that story. I'm telling you, Marvin Vettori says he's the #1 contender.
In jiu-jitsu, and tell us a little bit how that all came about. Tell us about your coach there and that period.
Well, I had a really good coach, Pedro Sauer. I was introduced to jiu-jitsu in 1990. It was right around 1992, 93. It was right before the UFC came to America, and a Brazilian missionary went to Brazil. I think he went to Sao Paulo and met Pedro there and talked to him into moving into Provo, Utah to start a jiu-jitsu club, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. And so he did. And Rickson Gracie came to visit Pedro, and I get a call from this missionary, the guy that brought Pedro to Provo. His name is Steve Bishop. He calls me on the phone one day, and he goes, "Is this Mark Schultz, the Olympic wrestling champion?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "The greatest jiu-jitsu fighter in the world is in town. Do you want to fight him?" And I said, well, I wasn't going to let anybody punk me, but I said, well, what are the rules? And this guy is a complete, he's really this guy really pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
He was trying to intimidate me.
Right.
And
Trying to punk you into it.
There are no rules. Yeah, he goes, there are no rules. I'm like, oh, really? No rules. We're going to commit a homicide?
Right.
Is that what we're doing? And, but I wasn't going to let anybody punk me. You know, I'd rather die than lose a challenge.
Right.
So I said, yeah, I'll fight him. I had to go to the NCAAs. So I said, when I get back from the NCAAs, meet me in the BYU wrestling room. We'll fight it out. And the way the guy set this whole thing up was really wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I went into that room, I expected to be like bullied or, you know, challenged or something like that. But that wasn't the way Rickson was. Rickson was, we were going to do, you know, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu no-gi match on the mat. And I didn't know this until I got into the room. I walk into the room and I see Rickson rolling around with my head coach, Alan Albright. And everybody stops and Rickson comes over to me and he says, "Are you the guy?" I go, "Yeah, I'm the guy." I said, "Are you the guy?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm the guy." And he goes, "What I do is punch and kick when I fight, but we're just going to do submission grappling today." So I took him down. I had him in a cradle for about 20 minutes, and then he got a triangle on me, and I kind of gave it to him because I didn't know what he was doing. I never seen a triangle before. Mm-hmm. It was my first submission grappling experience. And then I thought that was really cool. And so I was like, wow, that is awesome. And let's go again. So we went another 20 minutes, and I let him get on top of me because I wasn't able to get him in any submission holds. I didn't practice submission holds. I was a wrestler. It's against the rules. So I never practiced stuff that was against the rules. But if you open up a rule book in wrestling and you see all the moves that are against the rules, it's almost like a jiu-jitsu training manual. So he got me in a rear naked after another 20 minutes of going. And then he said, "Mark, you're the toughest guy I've ever gone against." And when he said that, I loved the guy. And I thought, I got to learn what he learns. And so I called up his student, Pedro, who was brought here by Steve Bishop. And I said, "Can I be your student?" And he said, "Yes, come on down, my friend." And we became great friends. Mm-hmm. And he trained me for 3 years. And he was in my corner at the UFC. And he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, Dave Beneteau, who's going to fight in UFC 9, is going to come down here and train. Do you want to train with him?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I'll train with him." Dave Beneteau was the national heavyweight wrestling runner-up, I think. He's either national champion or second place, one or the other. And he came down from Canada, and I trained with him for 2 weeks. And one day, after 2 weeks, I slammed him too hard, and I broke his hand.
All right. So I
took him to the hospital, and the doctor said, you can't fight if I put a cast on, obviously, but if I put a plate in, maybe you can hide it and still fight." So he put a plate in, and I told Dave, "I'm going to go to Detroit with you to be your corner man because I think you're going to get in trouble with that hand." So I went to Detroit, not expecting to fight at all. And I went to the press conference with Dave, and somebody ratted Dave out and said his hand was broke. I told Dave before he went to Detroit, "If you can't fight, I'm going to try and take your place." So I went over to the promoters and I said, "What do you think about me taking Dave's place? It's $50,000. And they said, "Oh, that's a great idea. You're Olympic champ. When you lose, it'll be even better." So I was like, "Look, man, why do you have to say that?" So anyway, we start negotiating this purse like all night long. And they're calling me like 4 times during the night to ask me if I'm going to do it or not.
And you're going to fight
they keep
the next day.
And so finally the next day at like 10 a.m. they said, "Hey, tell us right now or we're getting someone else." So I said, "Oh, give me a minute." And I go downstairs and I told Pedro and everybody that I would do it, and we signed the contract. And 8 hours later, I'm fighting Gary Goodrich in the octagon.
All right, I'm gonna pull that up. I grabbed a few clips out of that. One sec.
High defensively as a boxer would. Schultz goes for it.
Schultz has
drops him.
Went to him. Try to bait him. There it is.
Schultz is just too good there.
He's too quick. He's too for an eye gouge.
He just spit his mouthpiece out. That's a sign of sucking air.
Yes, it is. It's a sign of fatigue, and there's some good shots.
That's it. Stop it. Get it off. Get it off. Get it off. You're all right, baby.
That's it.
He's cut. He's cut.
I believe either that or he'll take him over to the doctor for a look.
You hit the nail on the head. He could be taken down every time.
Schultz is very relaxed for a first-timer. Just keeps his hands up. Ooh, he took a shot at it.
Wow, he went right to the area where the bleeding was, and he landed.
I think Schultz is going to duke it out a little bit. He looks like he even wants to throw a kick.
I think he wants him to grab the leg, and then he's going to come out with the right hand.
There he goes. There he goes.
Look at the power
Look at Schultz's
Mark
power.
Schultz. Being on top in that mounted position is just to bide your time, wait for that bottom person to make a mistake. There's a mistake.
Look out, he's in the mount.
Open hands.
He's trying to end it. Schultz is trying to end
Open
it.
hands.
For Goodrich's chin and strength didn't stop the fight.
I'll tell you what, I didn't see a good solid hit land. Tell you the truth, he did not throw anything.
Oh, that one was there.
No, they're glancing blows. They're glancing off those arms and forearms and elbows.
Goodrich hanging tough. He's got 5 seconds to get it through regulation. And then it's overtime.
He's got his arm.
Yeah, he's starting to look for the arm. He's looking for the arm.
Schultz knows there's an overtime.
Showing great technique.
That fight was incredible, and I was wondering how come you didn't continue a UFC career.
Because there was a lot of negative publicity. This was when the UFC came to America, it was banned in almost all states.
Right.
And because it was considered human cockfighting. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of negative publicity surrounding it, and the rules were really squirrely, and it was promoted as no holds barred, which really wasn't true. There was no biting and no eye gouging.
Yeah.
It wasn't really no holds barred. Mm-hmm. Most holds. I mean, two holds were barred.
Right.
So anyway, they after UFC 9, they put a color picture of me on the front page of the Salt Lake Tribune, and there's blood on the ground.
Oh yeah.
And I am in the most conservative LDS community on the planet.
That's right.
I'm at the center
right.
of the LDS world at BYU.
Yeah.
And it did not sit well with some LDS members, and they started complaining to the president of BYU that a BYU faculty member was beating up children, God's children, and turning them into hamburger. And so the president calls me and tells me to come up to his office, and I go up there, and he said, "This is not what we're about. You can still coach here, but you cannot fight anymore.
Wow.
Or you can keep fighting. You can't coach here." So I had to choose, and I had 3 kids at the time, and they needed health insurance, and there was no guarantee. Back then, you had to win to get paid. Nowadays, you don't. Right. You can lose and still make $300,000 or something. Mm-hmm. But back then, the only way you're going to make $50,000 is if you win. And so if you lose, not only are you
injured,
don't get paid, but you're going to have a bunch of hospital bills. Yeah. Right. So I thought at the time, the way the UFC was with, such a negative publicity and all the states banning it, I thought I'll just keep my job and retire 1-0. That's what I did.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. You could have probably went on to be a world champion in that sport too, because you definitely have it in you. But I totally get where it was at during those days and how it has transformed so much into the money game now. It's incredible what you have in the UFC.
I know. I was born 10 years
too late.
Too early.
Totally. Yep. So I remember when, I was first watching UFC and I was getting into it pretty young watching it. And as I said, you wrestled with my brother. You were his coach at Stanford. Do you remember Jeff?
Jeff Bradley?
Yeah.
You're Jeff Bradley's brother?
Yeah, I'm Jeff Bradley's brother.
No way.
Yeah. So.
Can't believe it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Small world, huh? So let's talk a little bit about the movie Foxcatcher. It's a well done movie.
The most inaccurate movie in it.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I really feel I'm very similar to you in some really strange ways. I really became a fighter. My life, I wrestled and I developed a lot of skills through wrestling, but I also developed a lot of fighting skills later on. But I had a lot of anger from my childhood, pent up inside me. But wrestling was the one way I could sort of funnel that in a positive way. But when I saw this, when I really started reading about you and your history in this film and the inaccuracies there and how some things were depicted, man, did I get it. And I fucking felt for you, man. If I was you, I would have been absolutely livid, pissed. And I totally...
Oh, I was. I threatened to kill the director.
Yeah.
But I realized after I threatened to kill him on Twitter, and those tweets were broadcast all over the world.
Yeah.
And when I saw him at the Oscars, he flinched when I went up to him. I decided to be merciful and let him live. But I did that for the producers, not him.
Right.
He's an asshole. He's a real prick.
Yeah, it was strange how they did that. I think it was fucking horrible, and the way they portrayed that scene and a few of them in the movie, and totally disrespectful for the human being that the movie's about, right? And so, and you being a fighter, I mean, why wouldn't you be that fucking pissed? So, but yeah, that movie was also very well made in some respects, but horribly inaccurate. And so... How did that story, or how did your story become a movie? How did that even happen?
Well, after I won the UFC, I came home and I realized that nobody knows what I did during my career other than a few very minor wrestling media outlets and stuff. So I thought, you know what, I need to tell my kids what I did with my life. So I wrote my autobiography. Okay. And a lot of people, they get on Amazon and they think that this is a true crime novel. It's not. It's my autobiography. The fact that it's named Foxcatcher is just to take advantage of the publicity surrounding the movie. It's not because I wanted to name it that.
Gotcha.
But it's my autobiography. And some people complain on Amazon and say, oh, it's all about you, and how great you are. I'm like, it's my autobiography. Of course it's about me. But they expect it's going to be about the murder. And it's really not.
Right.
But he took my story after I wrote it, and he took out most of the stuff about me and expanded on this very small part of my story, which was the murder.
Right.
And he decided to make the movie more about the murder and the murderer than about me, the guy that wrote the story. And he just screwed up the whole thing. It's just totally inaccurate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fucking strange one, that one. I think I read somewhere at that point, like, that was really hard on you. You had a lot of hard years after that. Sort of. After the Foxcatcher movie, sort of, how did things...
Well, I guess, I mean, it was kind of a, I don't know, it was a curse and it was a blessing at the same time. I mean, it got my name out there, but it didn't get it out there the way I wanted it to get out there. But, you know, there's an old saying, you know, when people stop talking about it, there's no such thing as bad publicity, that's what people say, which is not really true. I mean, if you're a child molester, that's pretty bad publicity. But with me in the movie, you know, having Channing Tatum play me, that was a big thing because, you know, he was named sexiest man alive.
Right.
I would tell people, you know, it was very difficult to find someone to play me, and the only guy I could get was sexiest man alive. But
yeah, you should have probably said he.
But yeah,
he wasn't as good looking as you. You should have gave him a little shit. But anyway, didn't you teach him to wrestle as well?
Yeah, I did. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with him, but I did show him my best moves, and like he does a really good arm drag in the movie, and he does a good gut wrench, and he does a backflip. You know,
right.
Actually, I trained him in wrestling like I trained myself in gymnastics. I just said, look, we're just gonna practice doing it one way over and over again until you got it down perfect, and he did. And he's just very good at you know, repetitive motions like dance moves and stuff. And he was in that movie Fighting, and so he wasn't really, you know, foreign to you know, physical athletic stuff, but wrestling is much different. It's much more difficult than anything, you know, anybody can do. It's very unnatural.
Yeah, right. It's, you know,
you know that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know.
I'm curious, what was your involvement in the production? What did you do? What was your
Not much. The reason the director used this movie to try to slander me was because I wouldn't lower my life rights price. He called me one day and he said, everybody, you know, the actors are all cutting their fee to do this movie. I need you to cut your fee also for your life rights. And I said, no, those guys are going to have careers. They're going to go off. They're going to make other movies. This is the only time I'm going to make this movie about my life rights. So no way am I going to cut my fee. And he got revenge on me by making me look bad.
Fucker. That's bullshit.
And I got revenge on him by threatening to kill him.
All right. Yeah. Don't want to see you in a dark alley. So I'm guessing your book's a little bit more the true story if people really want to read that part of the book as well. It's probably...
The book is accurate, 100%.
Right.
The only thing I wish I would have put in that book was the fact that I threw my last match. And it just so happened to be against another Turkish guy. And a lot of people in Turkey say that this guy got revenge for me hurting the first Turkish guy. It's not really true. I would have thrown the match had it been against anybody from any country, Cuba, Russia, anything. Because I just couldn't win a gold medal for that idiot DuPont.
Okay, yeah.
It was immoral. I felt it was immoral.
Yeah, that's a fucking crazy story. I know it's pretty touchy to sort of talk about that part of your life. So, you know, I don't want to go too deep into it, but that guy, DuPont, he had a lot of crazy stories. You know, I read somewhere like he thought his friggin' horses were, his horses were sending him messages from Mars, and he was sending wrestlers up in the attic to look for ghosts, and he was carrying guns around all the time. Was he that fucking crazy?
Yeah, you know, one thing I wish they would have put in the movie was the fact that when DuPont was in his 30s, he got into a horse riding accident, and his horse threw him onto a fence, and his testicles got infected, and he had to have them removed.
No
and
shit.
He lived the rest of his life as a eunuch.
Right. Whoa.
No, that should have been in the movie. That's a pretty major thing.
That's huge because it changed his whole testosterone.
If you lost your balls, that would be pretty major, don't you think?
Yeah, you lose your testosterone, right? So it fucks you up. You got to probably take some...
Yeah, it not only changed... and it gave him this androgynous look about him. He had this sort of effeminate or androgynous look about him. And when he told me that he lost his testicles, I looked at him in a completely different way after that.
Wow.
And I really examined his face and everything about him really closely, because I thought, that explains why he looks the way he does. The only thing they got right in that movie was the murder happened exactly the way it did in the court records, and I actually did cut 12 pounds in 90 minutes. However, they even screwed that scene up because they had me puking and then weighing in and showing me 12 over. And what really happened was I weighed in, saw I was 12 over. Then I went to puke, and then I was only 10 and a half over, and I had 90 minutes to lose it.
Holy shit.
Well, I guess after I puked, I had about 80 minutes. That's about the only accurate things in the whole movie. Everything else is fiction.
How did you lose 9 pounds in 80 minutes? How is that possible? How'd you do that?
No, I lost 12 pounds in 90 minutes.
Okay.
And I put a pair of cottons on, a pair of plastics over them, another pair of cottons over them, and another pair of polyester sweats over that. And I put my hood up, and I ran around the arena for about 20 minutes to get my sweat going. And I got on a stationary bike, and I put it right outside the arena door so that when people were coming out, they could see me. And I knew that as people were coming out from the last session, a lot of my friends would be seeing me and would wonder what I'm doing right out there in front of the arena. And I knew I could kind of recruit them and help get their energy to help me cut this amount of weight, because I've never cut that much in that short of time before. And I did. It ended up I attracted about, 10 people surrounding me that were interested in what I was doing, and they were encouraging me to, pedal harder, pedal faster and stuff. And that's how I lost it. But in the movie, it shows Dave got me in some back room somewhere, and Channing really doesn't have that many clothes on, and
right.
You're wearing totally bags. Inaccurate.
You're wearing bags. You're wearing sweatsuit, doing the real thing. Right.
Yeah, back when we could cut weight like crazy. You can't do that anymore because those guys died. I think in 1993, 3 guys died from dehydration. You can't do that anymore.
Wow, yeah, I never heard that story because, high school and college for us, the same thing. I remember I'd starve myself sometimes before tournaments for a couple days and be running with bags and sweatsuits, and then I'd get on the scale, I could barely stand up, just head spinning. I remember those were the hard days. And then you'd be wrestling a couple hours later, Yeah,
that's a side to wrestling that nobody even takes into account how tough it is. Not only do you have to push yourself to complete exhaustion during every match, but you got to dehydrate and cut weight to make weight. And nobody really gives that aspect of wrestling a second thought. But that's one of the more difficult things about wrestling, is just making weight.
Yeah.
And, if you're in college, you're going through Division I wrestling season, you're making weight every week.
I know.
There's nothing harder than going through a Division I wrestling season. I don't care what anybody says.
Right. The mental toughness, because you've pushed yourself to the absolute max, and you step on the scale, and sometimes a few hours later you're on the mat, and your energy levels when you wrestle in the tournament, it's the highest. It's higher than you put in practice sometimes, right? You totally amp out when you've pushed yourself to the absolute earth's end. I don't think people really get the mental toughness of wrestlers. Like, I think they're probably some of the toughest human beings on earth.
They are. When I was in college, there was a guy on our team named Robert DiProspero. We called him Bobby DiProspero. But anyway, his dad was the head of the Secret Service, and he was always standing next to President Ronald Reagan. And he came to Oklahoma to recruit. Well, he came to Oklahoma to see his son, but he also recruited some of us to join the Secret Service after we got done with college.
Really?
And I think one of the wrestlers joined the Secret Service. But anyway, after the Olympics, we went on this medalist tour of 3 cities. And the first city we went to we were right there in Los Angeles. So we went over to the Hollywood the L.A. Hilton or the Hollywood Hilton, something like that, and President Reagan was there. Well, Bobby D. Prospero's dad's always standing right next to President Reagan, and he sees me and Dave in the line of medalists to meet the president, and he sees us in the back of the line, and he says, "Hey, Mark, Dave, come on up here." So we walk up in front of all the other athletes, and I was actually the first guy to meet President Reagan. And so I told him I'd vote for him, and I don't know what to say. So, right. And then I go to kiss Nancy on the cheek, and she turns and kisses me right on the lips.
Oh, my God. Wow. Yeah, I saw that picture. That's a great shot, man. You and your brother standing with President Reagan and Nancy. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
Yeah, so hey, sorry. What's happening now? What's going on in your life? And what's going on today? What's the story?
Well, I have a GoFundMe campaign at GoFundMe.com. I'm trying to raise money to fix my teeth. I had to have all my teeth pulled because when I was wrestling, I would grit my teeth together so hard I created like thousands of microfractures in my teeth. And about 2008, my teeth all disintegrated, and the dentist said, "You got to get 8 root canals and crowns." So I did, and then I had a heart attack, and I realized, and I saw a documentary called Root Cause.
Okay. And
it showed there's a high positive correlation between heart attacks and root canals. So I decided to have all my root canals pulled out, and I started pulling the molars out in the back first, because I didn't want to ruin the way I looked in the front. Right. And so without molars in the back, I couldn't chew my food. So I used my incisors up front to chew my food, and they all couldn't take the pressure. My jaws were too strong and the teeth were too weak, and they all broke off. Wow. Like 6 of them broke off in like 3 months. And crazy. I just looked like a hillbilly from Louisiana or something. So I'm trying to raise money to have all of my teeth pulled out and implants put in. This is just a temporary denture.
Right. Yeah,
and I'm still raising money on that GoFundMe campaign. So if you go to GoFundMe.com and you go to help Mark Schultz restore his teeth, that's the name of my campaign.
Okay.
So if you don't want to donate, that's fine. Just share it on your social media or something.
Yeah. Hey, man. So we'll definitely put that on your page and all the links to your stuff, to your books and everything. What's happening in your day-to-day? Are you working? What's the story?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing a seminar here pretty soon in Hawaii, and I'm just setting up seminars. Wrestling, submission grappling, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, seminars, camps. That's all I'm doing.
Okay, cool. That's great. How are you feeling? How's your body feeling after all these years? You know, I remember when I was in high school, I never got hurt. And I got in a motorcycle wreck when I was in college. It sort of screwed up my wrestling career. I just made, my coach Pacheco, my freshman year, had made me the team captain. I got really excited. I had a Ncaa. I was like, I'm freshman. They're making me the team captain for the first tournament. So I was overamped. I got on my motorcycle and went over an overpass. I was in Sacramento, and I got in a motorcycle wreck and tore my knee up. It sort of destroyed that whole season. But, you know, and then later on in my life, now I get injuries. I'm quite injury prone, or they're all starting to come back to me and haunt to me years later. How you doing? How's your body holding up?
Well, I have a cervical fusion in my neck, and I've got 2 artificial knees. Father Time is a bitch.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. So, well, hey, Mark, I want to say what a pleasure to meet you. You are an absolute legend. You're a savage. You're one of the best wrestlers in U.S. history and one of the best wrestlers in the world. What a privilege to have you on the show, to hear about your history, your insights, and all your perspectives on life as a fighter in the fight game, and just some of your life story. It's quite incredible. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome, Todd. Anytime.
Mark, one of the things I want to say, condolence to your brother. He's a hero. He's a national hero. He's a world hero. My brother was at the funeral, and to your family and all that they've gone through, and my condolences and heartfelt feelings. I know it's years later, but I know the pain because me and my wife, we lost our daughter a few years ago. She was only 4 years old, and hard times when shit like that goes down in your family. So, a lot of love from our family to yours, and condolences, years later. So thanks for fucking being strong through all that shit.
I was involved in one form or another with Dave's career for the past 22 years. Many words come to mind that describe the Dave Schultz I knew. Competitive, tough, smart, adventurous, open, warm, considerate, giving, playful, but mostly he was just plain good. When he was young, and even when he was older, Dave was polite and courteous, and he was just plain enthusiastic about the sport of wrestling. For whatever reason, Dave Schultz and wrestling just fit. Dave showed everyone just how beautiful the primitive sport of wrestling could be. He took the sport to a higher plane than anyone ever had before. And just as he kept breaking new ground with his technique, he broke down barriers with people all over the world. Most wrestlers learn to stare down their opponents. They learn to hate them. But Dave was different. He loved wrestling and everything about it, including his opponents. He won every title that exists in wrestling, but he remained friendly, humble, and open. He never got tired of wrestling because he never looked too far ahead, and he loved the journey as well as the destination. It makes me smile when I think that Dave never stopped competing. He never stopped doing what he loved most. I had the honor of sitting in his corner in Colorado Springs when he made his final world team last summer. I'm gonna miss your corner, buddy, but mostly I'm just gonna miss how you made us feel.